I'll never forget the way her hands shook. We were at Gate C12 in Chicago Midway, and my Nana clutched the envelope like it held her world. Only, it didn't. It was empty. "Alice," she said, her voice barely holding, "he told me there's no ticket." Then my father turned his back. Like she didn't exist. Like the $20,000, 0 cents she'd wired him last month for this family adventure meant nothing. That was Thanksgiving 2014. They flew off to Rome. I stayed behind. I was 24, fresh out of nursing school in Milwaukee, and Nana June was the only person who ever made me feel like I belonged. She wasn't rich or flashy, just a retired librarian from Cedar Falls, Iowa, who wore cardigans with embroidered birds and made the best peach pie in the county. Every summer of my childhood, while my mom and dad vacationed in the Hamptons, I stayed in her creaky farmhouse. We'd play Scrabble, sip sweet tea, and fall asleep to the hum of her old vinyls. She saved everything I ever gave her. My stick figure drawings, my lopsided Mother's Day cards, even the napkin I scribbled on when I passed my boards. And when they came back from Europe 3 weeks later, swaggering through the terminal in leather jackets and tax-free cologne, they stopped cold. Because I was standing there, with a lawyer from Des Moines and a folder full of account transfers, text messages, and notarized statements. This isn't just a story of a forgotten grandmother. It's a story of quiet love, stolen trust, and what happens when the softest heart finally pushes back. They thought she wouldn't fight. They forgot who raised me. Still, I told myself, they wouldn't hurt her, not Nana June. I was wrong. That Thanksgiving, when they showed up at her little cedar frame house in Cedar Falls with suitcases, polished smiles, and talk of a once-in-a-lifetime family trip to Europe, I wanted so badly to believe them. To believe that, for once, they genuinely meant to include her, but even then a part of me held its breath because in my family, affection always came with fine print. And Nana? She never saw the strings until they tightened. It began like a scene from a Hallmark card, wine in crystal glasses, her spiced apple pie on the stove, and a dining table glowing under soft yellow light. She'd made her famous sweet potato casserole, the one with toasted pecans, and the house smelled like cinnamon and turkey skin. But the laughter felt hollow, too timed, too bright. I knew that laugh. Dad used it to close real estate deals. He forked into his plate and said, "You know what I've been thinking? This family needs an adventure. Rome, Paris, London, all of us, making memories together." Nana blinked, startled. "That sounds beautiful, but my knees—" "That's the beauty," he interrupted. "We take it slow. Private rooms, wheelchairs, even a travel nurse if needed." My mother chimed in. "You've never left the country, June. It's time." Even Brooke and Tyler, my teenage cousins, who'd been glued to their phones all night, mumbled half-hearted agreements. Then Dad added, offhandedly, like it was no big deal, "We just need a bit more to lock things in. Deposits are due next week." "How much is a bit?" I asked, my voice even. He grinned. 20 grand. I figured Mom might want to pitch in. She always dreamed of this. The room paused. Then Nana nodded faintly. "Well, if it brings everyone together." She called the bank the next morning. I stood in the hallway, fists clenched. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice tight. She smiled softly. "Honey, they're finally seeing me again. It's worth every penny," she'd told me. Every part of me wanted to believe her. But the way my dad hugged her goodbye? Too quick. Too distracted. Left a cold knot in my chest. This wasn't a gift, it was a transaction, and Nana June didn't realize she was the one being sold short. The morning of the flight, she was ready before any of us. She wore her navy cardigan with the gold buttons and her black flats, the ones she always called her travel shoes, even though they hadn't seen a terminal in over 20 years. Her suitcase was tiny, the kind you'd bring for a weekend trip, not a 3-week tour across Europe. "I packed light," she said, beaming, "so I won't slow anyone down." I forced a smile, but inside, I was unraveling. At O'Hare, everything moved fast. Dad barked orders, passports in hand like a drill sergeant. Mom fretted over snacks and seat upgrades. No one really spoke to Nana. I walked beside her, wheeling her case. She looked around like a child seeing the ocean for the first time. "I've never been to an airport this big," she whispered, clutching my arm. At the check-in counter it started. Dad's voice dropped, sharp, clipped. "Not on the manifest. Must be a system error," he told the agent. I stepped in. "What's going on?" Dad turned to me, smile too tight. "There's been a mix-up. Looks like Nana's ticket didn't go through." Her smile faltered. "Charles?" "What do you mean it didn't go through?" He avoided her eyes. "Website glitch. Timing's tight. Nothing we can do now." Mom chimed in, shrugging. "Maybe it's for the best, June. All that walking. You said your knees hurt." Anna blinked. "But I paid. I gave you the money?" Dad gave her a plastic smile. "And thanks to you, we're all going. You should rest. We'll bring souvenirs." Then he turned, just turned, and walked toward the gate. No hug, no goodbye, just silence. I stood frozen. My heart pounded like a war drum in my chest. All around us, families hugged, snapped photos, buzzed with laughter and excitement. And we just stood there. Me, Nana June, and a little suitcase that suddenly felt far too small. She looked up at me, blinking slowly. "There's no ticket for me," she murmured again, like saying it aloud might somehow undo it. I reached for her hand. "Then I'm not going either." She shook her head. "Alice, you've dreamed about this trip. Not like this. Not without you." And just like that, they boarded the plane to Europe. And we turned around, walking in silence through the automatic doors and back into the biting November wind. The drive home was quiet. Nana sat upright in the passenger seat, her hands folded gently in her lap. No tears, no anger, just stillness, like she was watching someone else's life from the outside. When we got back to her little house, she walked to her window chair, unzipped her suitcase, and began unpacking with slow, careful hands. Folded sweaters, a bottle of lavender lotion, a brand new passport, never stamped. I stood in the doorway, not sure if I should say something or let her pretend it hadn't happened. Instead, I went to the kitchen and brewed her some chamomile tea. When I came back, she was holding an old photo, her, my dad, and Aunt Dana at Myrtle Beach in the late 80s. The edges were soft, the colors faded, but her smile, radiant. "I really thought, maybe this time, they meant it," she whispered. I couldn't answer. The anger in my throat was too thick. That night, after she went to bed, I sat alone at her table. My laptop glowed in the dark. I typed, "Elder Financial Abuse Laws, Idaho," and clicked, "Coercion, deception, inheritance rights, financial exploitation." I copied down the number. The next morning, she was already in the garden, pruning her rose bushes in knit gloves. I brought her coffee. "You don't have to pretend you're okay," I said quietly. She looked up, smiled faintly. "I'm not pretending, sweetheart. I just don't want to make it harder for you." "It's already hard," I admitted. "But doing nothing, that's harder," she said softly, looking down at the rose petals in her palm. "They're still my children." "I know," I whispered. "But you're my family, and I won't let 'em do this to you." She didn't reply. That night, I called the number I had written down. A receptionist connected me to Elliot Granger, a lawyer with the Office of Elder Protection in Boise. "Tell me everything," he said, calm and steady. So I did. For the first time in days, I didn't feel helpless. Elliot wasn't what I expected. When he arrived the next afternoon, he wore a gray blazer and jeans. His warmth didn't feel rehearsed. He shook Nana June's hand gently and sat on the edge of her floral armchair like a visitor, not an investigator. "Mrs. Whitmore," he began, "Alice told me what happened. I know this is difficult, but what they did wasn't just hurtful. It may also be illegal." Nana clutched her teacup. "I don't want trouble. They're my family." "I understand," Elliot said. "But I'm here to protect you. Coercing you into giving them $20,000, then leaving you behind, that meets the definition of elder financial exploitation." Her eyes flickered. Shame, doubt. I said, They didn't earn that money, Grandma. They took it. That's not love. That's theft. Elliot leaned forward. With your permission, we can take steps to recover the funds and protect your rights. We'll need bank records, messages, anything. She hesitated, then finally, if Alice believes this is right, I trust her. That was all we needed. At her bank, the manager, Denise Harper, printed the transfer, $20,000, 0 cents, to my father's account. At the airport, Tanya Fields, the check-in agent, narrowed her eyes. I remember her, she said. She looked lost. If this moment gripped your heart, don't miss what comes next. Subscribe now and be the first to witness how Alice turns quiet courage into a storm no one saw coming. Her son had told the airline agent that her health made her a risk to fly. They told her to go home. No explanation, no apology. Just polite cruelty wrapped in protocol. Tanya Fields agreed to provide a written statement. Each new piece of the puzzle made it harder to breathe, but easier to act. Back at Nana June's, I helped Elliot scan documents while she made us grilled cheese sandwiches in her tiny kitchen, pretending life was still normal. But I saw the shift in her. She didn't wince when Elliot used phrases like civil case or revocation of inheritance. While slicing tomatoes, she even muttered, maybe it's time they realized I'm not just a wallet in a rocking chair. Elliot smiled. I'd say you're a pretty powerful woman, Mrs. Wetmore. She blushed like a teenager. A few days later, Elliot looked up from his laptop. Alice, he said calmly, we're ready. Ready for what? I asked. He closed his folder. For when they come back. 3 weeks later, they did. I knew the flight number. Elliot had pulled it from the travel agency's receipt history. Paid in full, of course, with Nana's money. I didn't tell her I was going. She was pruning roses on the porch when I left. I said I had errands. She smiled, handed me a grocery list. At Boise International Airport, I waited by the arrivals gate. Elliot stood beside me, wearing a charcoal suit, no-nonsense calm. In his hand, a manila folder. Inside, bank records, Tanya's statement, and a court-authorized summons. Financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Civil restitution pending. Request for inheritance suspension. Then I saw them. Dad rolled 2 suitcases covered in travel stickers. Mom followed, flawless as ever. Aunt Dana posed with Brooke and Tyler. They were glowing. Until they saw me. Elliot stepped forward. Charles Whitmore. Dana Brooks. These are for you. They both stared at the papers like they were written in another language. What is this? Dad stammered. Elliot stayed calm. Legal notice of investigation regarding financial exploitation of June Whitmore. You must respond within 7 business days. Failure to comply may result in formal litigation. Aunt Dana yanked off her sunglasses. Are you serious? She gave us that money. Elliot raised an eyebrow. Under documented misrepresentation. That's not generosity, that's fraud. Dad's eyes narrowed. Alice, you did this? I nodded. You're suing your own family. No, I said. I'm protecting mine. You made her believe she was wanted. Then you left her at the gate like she didn't matter. She's old, Mom snapped. That trip would have been too hard. But not hard on her savings, I said. Silence. Dana scoffed. You've always been dramatic. Elliot stepped forward. This conversation is over. You'll hear from us in mediation. We walked away. I looked back once. No glamour, just panic. They skipped the first mediation, Elliot shrugged. People like that think silence makes us stop. It didn't. The judge ruled by default. Full restitution, $20,000, 0 cents, within 30 days. But it didn't end there. Evidence of deception and emotional harm led the court to place a temporary freeze on all inheritance claims. A formal recommendation followed: revoke inheritance rights for Charles, Dana, and their spouses. When I brought the ruling home, Nana sat quietly at the table, flipping the pages. They really did this, she said softly. Not disbelief, just recognition. I'm sorry it had to come to this, I said. She smiled, small and sad. No, sweetheart. I'm sorry I let it go on this long. That night she called Mr. Hendricks, her old estate attorney. I'd like to update my will, she said. Remove Charles and Dana. Completely. No portion, they've had enough. That's what Nana told Mr. Hendricks when finalizing her will. Not in anger, just certainty. Later, we sat on the porch with Coco warming our hands. I'm not doing this to punish them, Alice, she said. I just want peace, and peace means not giving people more chances to hurt you. I nodded. I understood. Over the next few weeks, I helped her close the old joint accounts she'd once shared with my father. We transferred her savings into a protected trust. She made me her financial advocate. I want you to handle things if I can't, she said. You'll always be able to, I whispered. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. Not just the betrayal, but the years of silent hoping had finally settled into clarity. Not bitterness, just peace. We returned to our routines. Gardening, groceries, too many cookies. But something new bloomed, too. She began sketching again, little birds and hillside scenes. I signed us up for a watercolor class at the community center. She complained, but came anyway. It's never too late to start over, she said one morning, brush in hand. And it wasn't. We had started over. No roles, no guilt, no waiting for apologies that wouldn't come. Only presence, only truth. That spring, I planted yellow tulips along the fence. When I was 8, she'd told me yellow tulips meant hope. Not joy, but hope. I learned a plant. Joy fades. Hope stays. By May, the yard was golden. She stood on the porch, coffee in hand, staring out. Her eyes glistened. I figured you needed something to look forward to, I said. She squeezed my hand. I already do, honey. You. That summer, I applied to Idaho State's master's program in elder advocacy. I wanted to be a voice for others like her, people whose stories never reached courtrooms or care centers. When I told her, she teared up. I always knew you'd help people, she whispered. Just didn't think you'd start with me. I smiled. You taught me how. Life moved forward, not without shadows, but with gentler light. Nana made friends in her painting class, sold a few watercolors at the town craft fair. One was called Gate C12. She never explained it, but I knew. Sometimes, letters came from my parents or Aunt Dana. We never opened them. Nana just tucked them into a drawer marked unanswered and sipped her tea. 2 years passed. One October morning, she sat by the window in her favorite quilt. I'm slowing down, she murmured. But the tulips will come back next spring, won't they? They always do, I said. She passed in her sleep 2 weeks later. We buried her on a hill near the lake, beneath an old oak. I laid yellow tulips at her grave. At the funeral, neighbors came, her art teacher, Chiron. Even Tanya sent flowers. The card said, she mattered. She did. She still does. Now I work in elder justice. I kept the tulips blooming. And her legacy, too. If you've made it this far, thank you for walking beside me through every moment. I shared my story not for sympathy, but for truth. If Nana's strength moved you, if my fight meant something, I'd love to hear it. Leave a comment, tell me what you'd have said to her, or what she reminded you of. Because stories like ours don't just need to be heard, they need to be remembered. And if you've ever been afraid to stand up, let this be your sign. Silence protects no one. Let's rediscuss silence, protects no one. Speak, even if your voice shakes. Choose truth, choose kindness, and never forget your worth.